Hello guys, how's it going? I do greatly apologize. I realized when I put the time up for the little trailer video earlier, or yesterday, or early this morning, whenever I put it up, that I should have put it up for 8:30 instead of 8 o'clock because I don't get off of work on the week during the week until 8:30 or 8 o'clock. So say 8:30 till 8 o'clock. And so I should have probably put it to 8:30 instead. That would have had time to get home and get situated and everything. But that's okay. We're going to go ahead and jump to this. So I'm going to go ahead and set the camera back up so we can start on the picture and kind of go over the character that I'm going to be showing you and kind of talking about, and also talking about how we can take things from our childhood and really use those in our writing, use those ideas. And I'm going to talk about some different points as it relate to it. If you like what you see, guys, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. I normally do writing times on Mondays. I normally do a story time on Thursday. And I usually do a drawing time on Saturday. So I'm kind of combining two things into one. Anyway, here we go. We're going to go ahead and flip it over so we can go ahead and get the picture started for you. All right, so this guy right here is a character that I have probably had some sort of version of since I was a young child. I remember when I was young, I used to always wonder what it would be like to have a detective story being done. And I always thought as it relates to a detective story, I said, well, if you're going to do a detective story, who is the most popular detective that's ever detectived besides Batman? And of course, everybody can't do Batman, so you got to kind of go with what you know. So anyway, so this is Sherlock Homeboy. Now, the story behind Sherlock Homeboy and how he started, when I was a kid, I remember always thinking, most of the detective movies, you saw a character and it was Sherlock Holmes and, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, and he would go out and do all these different things, and they're really cool and they're really incredible, and then he'd have these cases, and then they introduced Moriarty years later, and we'd go through and do all these different things. And then as a kid, I also remember like growing up and watching stuff like Shaft and watching stuff like Inspector Gadget even and different things like that made me think of detectives. And of course Batman, because as a comic book fan, Batman was, one of the monikers that Batman has had for forever and a day is the world's greatest detective. And so that was something that, I always enjoyed reading and different things like that. And so reading the stories of Batman, and sometimes he would have situations where he would have to solve a crime pretty quick because if he didn't, Gotham City would get blown up or something. He'd be going up against the Riddler and the Joker or whoever it was that week. And so anyway, this is kind of my homage to several things that are detective-like. And also growing up in the late 70s, kind of showing my age. Anyway, one of the things that I was always kind of influenced by was blaxploitation films. You had different characters like Dolomite, you had different characters like Shaft. You even had a remake of Shaft later on, and as a matter of fact, I think we might be getting a sequel to that one. Sam Jackson has said that he may be doing a sequel to that movie. I'm not for sure if we need one, but anyway, so that's out there. It's a possibility. But anyway, so you had these characters that were bigger than life. They were usually somehow or another they always end up. You had Sweet Jackie Brown and all these other people, and they were either detectives or they went out and did different things, and they were basically kind of private eyes, and they would go out and do different things. And even lately, with stuff like Jessica Jones, you have a character who's a superhero, but she's also kind of more of the private detective type. And so she goes out and does these different things and solves these different cases and things like that. But then she starts realizing that there's a lot going on with her that she doesn't know how to fix. And so she kind of deals with it. I wouldn't say she deals with it in the greatest way in the world, but that's beside the point. So anyway, this character that I'm working on is a character that, as I developed my stuff for my children's books, one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to give Pencil Ninja Heroes kind of like, for those of you, again, dating myself, there were characters like Fat Albert that I grew up watching. And one of the characters that they always had in the show was a character by the name of the Brown Hornet, which, go ahead and figure on where that influence is. But anyway, the Brown Hornet character, the thing that was cool about him was he was a masked kind of space guy. And so he wasn't, he wasn't totally like the Green Hornet, which would probably be his namesake, but he was the Brown Hornet because he was African American and he was out in space. And so, and he kind of looked a little bit like Bill Cosby. Of course, anybody that knows anything about Fat Albert knows that the Fat Albert and the Cosby kids are based on his life as a child. So all the characters that were in that show were real life people to him. And so that's one of the reasons why Sherlock Homeboy has the mask on. It's kind of in memory of the Brown Hornet character. I know a lot of people say, "Well, you can't talk about Bill Cosby." And to that I say, he's still somebody I admire. He's still somebody, in spite of the stuff he's been in spite of the stuff he's done. Um, there are things about it, there are things about the way he's acted towards some women and different things like that. I don't appreciate that because that's not definitely not the way I roll in life. But at the same time, his body of work prior to a lot of that was definitely something that I could admire as a person who loves working with kids to this day. So, and creating characters that can be to mean stuff to kids. So that's how I feel about that. And if you have issues with it, I understand that. Put it down in the comments. And but anyway, so that's kind of the idea. And then the hat is a Kango style hat. And two people were pretty much synonymous with wearing those. And they're both pretty cool people. One of them is LL Cool J. And then the other is Samuel L. Jackson. And so it's kind of why I gave Sherlock Homeboy a Kango hat instead of the normal average, hat that most, detectives would wear. So anyway, go ahead and get into some of the tighter details here. I got to go a little bit thinner for some of this stuff in here. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and tighten this up and go ahead and do these. But anyway, one thing I would always stress to you, if you have characters you created in your youth, especially if you're a writer, especially if you're a creative type, I hope you didn't throw all that stuff away because you never know what you might be able to use from that in order to help you to create new characters for tomorrow, and opportunities to reach out to kids with those same characters. You look at characters like Snoopy and different characters, and you look at the story behind how Charles Schultz and some of those characters created them. And a lot of those characters are created out of their childhood. So don't ever feel like that something is, quote, too dumb or too stupid, perhaps, to do that, because the only way you'll know if it'll work is if, you try it. So I hope that this gives you some inspiration to take some of those things you may have put away for a while and just rework them. You never know how you might be able to use those things in the future. So there's this Sherlock Homeboy. And I may do another video tightening it up. I'm not for sure. We'll go ahead and at least get get a couple of other things in there for that. So I may do part 2. I'm not for sure. We'll go ahead and do the lamp post behind him. Go ahead and tighten that up there. Yeah. I always like to set up a little bit of mystery. This is kind of that old school time frame where people used to stand out in front of lights, things like that. So you always want to kind of present that issue now. Yeah. Go ahead and put that in. I'll have to go ahead and pop out the whites once this dries real well, so that way I can go ahead and put that there as well. Yeah. 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 That way we can go ahead and get the light source, because that means our light's going to be coming from kind of behind him. So we do the light source later, we'll definitely be pulling a lot of that light in on this side of his body. Oh, sorry. Totally knocked that stuff over. Sorry, I was sitting there getting all flashy while I'm pointing. So you see Pencil Ninjas, that's where you can see Sherlock Homeboy is definitely coming for you. So that's kind of where that's going in at. What's the point? Let you know where he's going to be coming from. All right. Go ahead and put that light in there. That way we see where the light's coming from. Need to separate this out a little bit so that way it's there. Again, guys, my apologies. I do apologize that I did not get started on time because, like I said, I got off of work late. So I do want to go ahead and give y'all that again for those of y'all who came and tried to watch the video and then, realized there was no video because I wasn't here yet. I wasn't home. But do know in the future, especially when I try to do these, I'll make sure to put that time in as 8:30 and not 8 o'clock. Unless, of course, I do it on a Saturday when I'm off, and then we'll figure it out from there. It won't be so late. So, but anyway, that's the basic picture of Sherlock Homeboy, and that's basically inspirations. Something I'm going to ask for in the comments today is, do you have a childhood character? It could be an imaginary friend. It could be anything that you had in your childhood, something like that, that if you could bring it to life and tell a story about it, what would it be? Anyway, guys, as always, above all else, be blessed and be a blessing to somebody. Take care, guys. Love ya. As always, keep doing what you're doing. Keep creating. And we want to see what you're doing as well. Go ahead and comment below if you are working on stuff.